Well, here we go. Good morning. Good morning. I am so excited to be here today. I've got a lovely friend with me that we're going to share some information about grief and trauma. And so my name is Amirah Hall, and I have been on the path myself for over 40 years. I didn't know about it way back when, but I think I was on the path to healing my own grief and my own trauma. And we didn't have labels like that back when I started, but I've been on the path of healing myself and working as a professional medium now for over 25 years. And I would say that a big part of the work I do is helping people overcome, grief and trauma in their own lives. As we overcome our pain, that's how we get to step into manifesting and choosing the life that we desire. And so here we are today. If you like this topic, if you like this show or our conversation, please give us a thumbs up. It really, really helps the YouTube algorithm, and YouTube will show it to more people. And go ahead and subscribe. I'm here every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I had a break. I took a few days off. I went over to Palm Springs and I was at Contact in the Desert, and I've got some really exciting things coming up for all of that. But let's get into talking about our topic today, and that is about healing from grief and trauma. And today I have a beautiful, amazing woman, Janine Naus. She's an internationally recognized grief and trauma relief therapist. I got a little tongue-tied there. She's a certified life, spiritual, energetic coach, and she is certified calm, accepting, resilient, and empathetic care practitioner. She's a multiple #1 international best-selling author, and she works with people who are suffering and stuck in grief due to maybe some trauma, and supports them on their path and on healing and creating a life they love. So her book, the featured #1 best-selling book, is The One Thing Every Mom Needs to Know. And I'm waiting to hear about that. So she's the author of Creating Heaven Wherever I Am book series, which focuses on self-help topics. She's the creator of Stop Suffering Now system, which focuses on the foundational strategies needed to move past difficult grief situations and trauma to make peace with your past, and so that you can move on. So there is another way out, and it is to the other side, right, Janine? So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here, Amirah.
Yeah, it's delightful. I love meeting people on the path, and as we can sort of hold hands together and sort of come into the sunshine out of our darkness, right? And out of the shadows of where we're struggling in grief. So to get started, and I'm excited for you to share some of the steps and strategies that you work with your clients with, but let's start with, how did you get started with this, Janine?
Oh, sure. I, as you notice, I'm a grief and trauma relief specialist, and I chose to focus in this area because of my own personal experience with trauma. And I really, really struggled to find the support I so desperately needed for me to be able to move forward and stop suffering. And this led me on a quest to seek out mentors and healers and educate myself in order to find solutions. And after many years of research, I developed a proprietary holistic approach to healing so that others didn't have to suffer the way I did. And that's why I developed the Stop Suffering Now system. And it's my mission to help people who are ready to heal from physical, emotional, sexual, and catastrophic event trauma so that they can leave their past behind and be fully present for themselves in the moment and truly live their best lives going forward.
You said something key, like people that are ready to heal their trauma. And I think that's key because so many people say they are, but this has been a very long time now. I really don't work with people like that anymore, but I remember working with people that just want to go on and on and on with the story. And I know myself way back when I first went to counseling, therapy, as they call it, I remember I got to a point where I'm tired of talking about it. I want to move on to something different. Show me a path. And, I was one of those people too that, give me a system, give me a step-by-step way. So was there a traumatic event for you that was sort of the launch pad for you? Did you find there was a pivotal moment for you?
Well, for the pivotal moment kind of happened in my early 50s. So when I turned 50, and I talk more about that when I talk about my story. And essentially, I was assaulted in a bar, and then just some really rude comments by an individual, and he was very difficult to deal with. So that all of a sudden, all those feelings bubbled up, and I just finally had a voice and spoke up, to get him to stop. And, so it was like, I was so sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. I did, and so I think that was kind of a pivotal moment for me. And I realized I needed to get help. I needed to step out and find my way through this, because I too was somebody who went through a lot of talk therapy, and I felt like I was saying the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on my healing journey, I come to realize it takes many different modalities and healing tools to be able to integrate that into your being. And we're all different people, so we all have differing needs. And one modality may work well for one person now versus a modality, you try it and you're like, oh, I'm not so sure. Let's take, for example, like meditation. People are like, I can't sit still. And so they'll sit there and get uncomfortable and think, well, this isn't working for me. Well, it may not in this moment, but as you take other steps, you may be able to revisit that and find it does really help you. And of course, it's something that really does help a lot of people. So
well, and I always say, there's thousands of different kinds of meditation. So, I created a form of meditation. I call it quantum energy tools, but it's a process that's directing your mind so that we are actually doing energetic work is kind of a trick. Whereas I kind of argue that if we leave our body, we're not really touching the trauma. We're not eradicating it. We're not eroding it in any way. The pain is so great that it pushes us out of the body. We don't want to be here because it's too yucky. And so when we go out of the body, we're not really processing it, are we?
That's correct. These emotions that they're very, these very difficult emotions, they just live in our body. We need to help them flow out, change, shift that energy around. And, and it's very important, it's to get, to come back home to yourself, to love is what I often refer to. And, instead of looking outward for the solution, it's inward, so, yeah.
So that's I hear that a lot from people. Come home to yourself. Well, usually when you're in so much grief or trauma, I don't know about you, but where the hell is that? Like you're just in this spiral of darkness and misery, and you're just lashing out. How do you find that home to self?
It's really understanding that it's a process. And sorry, my light kind of bleeped out on me.
Okay, let me shine some light on you.
I was like, oh no, don't do that now.
Oh, isn't it funny? Well, this is better than last time, right? We did this a week or two ago, and everything. Janine, you had a blackout on your side, right? The Zoom wouldn't even work. So, pardon me. So what did we do? We just paused. We said, okay, we'll do it another day. And Janine, thank God you got everything sorted out with your technology.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you have to reinstall Zoom? Is that what it was?
Not at all. Yeah. Everything was fine.
Talk about crazy energy.
Exactly. It was just in that moment. I had a Zoom call right after that, and it was absolutely fine. So I'm
wow.
Not sure.
Okay.
So I don't know if Zoom was going through an update at that time, because I noticed some changes in my now.
Right, but I was on Zoom and it was clear. So so the thing of it is when you're working with clients, do you work over Zoom?
Yes.
And do you ever have snafus, like technical issues with?
Rarely, yeah.
Okay.
One other time I had it was during a webinar, and it was, when they talk about like Zoom bombers or something like that. And so you just set up things so that that doesn't happen. And but that was the only time I ever had really kind of a snafu, because I never had anything happen like that before. So when you don't experience it, it's like, oh, okay. And it's like,
Well, and the
when you
reason I'm bringing this up and belaboring this is because oftentimes when our energy is so disruptive,
right.
that, and whatever maybe our excitement level, and to get this communication out to people and validating their grief and their pain, that can interfere with the technical signals. And I see that from time to time, and especially when people really want the information. So let's talk about this grief and coming into this process of being able to be kind to ourselves and gentle with ourselves. And maybe how do you typically approach that to start with?
Well, for me, grief and trauma, it's, we go through these incredibly difficult experiences, and and I understand the challenges that trauma survivors face. So that's something, because of my own personal experience, I understand. I've been there. I'm here with you. And so trauma can really take on those differing forms, like the physical, emotional, sexual abuse, as well as those catastrophic events. So it's important that people recognize that trauma is an individual's emotional response to terrible events. And initially, many people go through this shock and denial, and then those long-lasting reactions may struggle with unpredictable emotions, flashbacks, difficult relationships, and even physical symptoms. That when we have something, we feel tightness in the chest, that kind of thing. So each person's emotional response to trauma, as I shared, is unique, and it's based on their experiences and ability to process these emotions. And so one of the things I tend to do is um, I refer to these intense flood of emotions that can make it difficult for one to stay present and understand what is happening, and to cope with experience that may have maybe threaten their life or their body or their emotional well-being. And so survivors find it challenging to face these emotions that they encountered. And so this is the essence of trauma. And then of course there's these three areas of trauma, like acute and chronic and complex trauma. And acute is where it's a single event. The chronic trauma is involving repeated exposure, and then the complex trauma is from multiple traumatic events. And now, with that little bit of background, it helps to understand that. And then now we can look at the connection between grief and trauma. So I noticed that many of my clients often confuse trauma with the grief that arises from what they experienced. And in reality, not all grief is accompanied by trauma, but all trauma involves grief. And this is why I specialize in providing relief for both um, grief and trauma, and that's a distinction that sets me apart from many other trauma experts. And similar to some of the work that you're doing. And in my view, healing from trauma requires a process of grieving. So trauma is devastating, and you may not have a choice in how you experience it, but you do have choices in how you handle it, how you experience it, and how you live beyond the past. And many trauma survivors find themselves trapped in the past, and they even have simple conversation can trigger those memories that kind of transport them back to the traumatic event. And it's as if it's as if they're reliving that horrifying moment, and I bumped my cord. That's what's doing it.
Yeah. Well, as I see it, when people are stuck in the past, their energy is, they typically struggle with depression. They're literally, their energy, their energetic beingness is more in the past than in the present. And then if we're struggling with anxiety, we're in the future. Our spirit is stretched. So the challenge for all of us becomes, how do we be present?
Yeah.
Right? With all of this baggage that we've all got. There's nobody that is exempt. Every single person has some. And so would you say that, so I found that interesting. So you said everything every person that experiences trauma experiences grief, but not everybody with a grief. Did I say it right?
Experiences trauma.
Trauma.
Yeah. It's a very key point, and it can be confusing, but we grieve something always as a result of our traumatic experience. It's some form of a loss. So yeah.
Well, as an example, I never thought this was grief, but when I moved from Canada,
Yeah.
I got married and then I moved out of the country. I grieved, I cried, I sobbed. I had no idea. Some people said, "Oh, you're just homesick." But no, it was grieving the loss of that connection, that community, that sense of belonging, and it shifted. Right.
Yeah.
And so I guess that was quite a number of years ago. That wasn't, people didn't categorize things, make
Yeah.
it so neat,
Yeah.
easy to process. But I guess that was a form of grief, being
Mhm.
able to let it go. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, and we get trapped in those, the past thinking, the worrying about the future. So, one of the things I like to do is work with grounding techniques to help people center themselves and return to the present. So to me, that's really an important thing for people to do. So
Absolutely. I will cheer you on for that one, boy. That's the very first tool I teach people. So would you be willing to share some of your process of grounding?
Sure. I may ask someone to sit down and feel the contact of their feet on the floor, and then the sensation of their hands and their legs, and the support of the chair that they're sitting on, and this grounding exercise helps them reconnect with the present. It's that touch, that feel, that in that moment. So then I'll guide them through slow, deep breaths, and then I'll encourage them to breathe in the present moment and align themselves with it. And then to further ground them, I'll ask them to look around the room, and then name the things that they see. And this practice solidifies their connection to the present. And then additionally, I'll encourage them to acknowledge things that are not present in a room, such as the traumatic event or the loved one that they lost. And this process helps them move away from the traumatic moment and back into the present. And I conclude the grounding exercise by reminding them that they are safe, sitting in the chair. And I'll ask them to recall the things that they saw in the room and acknowledge that their loved one or the traumatic event is no longer present there. So I'm bringing them back to the present moment is really critical. But it's important to understand that we shouldn't leave the loved one or the traumatic event behind. So I inquire about where their loved one or the event is now, and we take a moment to breathe. And then I invite them to take slow, deep breaths, and then fully absorbing in the present moment, observing what's in the room and what's not. And then they share where their loved one is now and where the traumatic event exists in their lives. And then we honor that. And then we by guiding them through this process, I'm actually helping them transition out of the traumatic moment. And it's essential to note that this doesn't mean that the trauma is completely gone. It really just means they've moved beyond that specific moment. So for trauma survivors, getting stuck in a traumatic moment only leads to more suffering.
Yeah.
And so if they acquire these tools and strategies, and I do that in my 7 essential elements to expanding awareness, that's part of my first pillar of my Stop Suffering Now program, then survivors can be better equipped to move through the trauma and find relief. So grounding is just one of the many tools I use to support survivors on their journey. So
I love it. I love it. Well, and do you, in terms of the grief, when we lose a loved one, you're not a medium, are you?
No.
Okay.
I would imagine, I guess in the mediumship, we have some ability, but it's.
Well, we do. I'm a medium, but the thing of it is I was just curious when you saying acknowledging where your loved one is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that in this case they've crossed over.
Correct.
But are you acknowledging that they're there or that they've left?
Well, they're not in the physical realm,
Yeah.
So for me, they're still with us, from the energetic side, from the spirit,
Yes.
kind of side. So that, for me, that's how it is. And I think that that's different for different people and how they see or view that. So it's whatever comes up, and acknowledging that that's how they see it,
And I think it's a process too, because I've had some clients that couldn't feel it, didn't feel it, were mad as hell that their loved one has crossed, and were really struggling with their loss. But over a short amount of time, they are having conversations with them. And so that they can bridge that gap. And for them, it becomes real. Other people, it's different, as you pointed out. Yeah.
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 So can you tell us a story? Is there a client or an example of something that you can share with us in how you helped somebody overcome their journey?
Well, I can say the very first time I ever shared about even my story with absolutely no background. I was at another event, there's about 500 women there, and then I was working with a spiritual teacher at the time, and she invited me to share 10 minutes to people in that room. And this is before I really was stepping into the work that I do today. And when I shared the story, I had no idea the kind of impact it would have on individuals, so there was somebody in the room who listened to my story about, and I was talking at that time about my mom and the emotional abuse that I dealt with. And so apparently she dealt with a lot of it in her own personal life. And she just like asked repeatedly, how did you do it? How did you do it? And, for me, it was just what I was doing, the steps and strategies, the things I was learning, knowing it was a process, and, just kind of talking about it, that, you can move through on the other side. I had no idea that at that time, I just said, this is what I really want to be. This is who I am. I want to be able, ever since I was a little girl, and the experiences that I had, I always knew that somehow my story was going to come out there, but it was going to be that to help other people, and find a way to, that what I do helps them move through what it is. So,
Would you be willing to share your story?
yeah, I got to, take a moment here on something that's really important. And, so, one of the things is, before I begin to share my story, I want to say that what I'm about to share, it does cover sensitive and subject matter, and it may not be suitable for everyone who's listening. So it could potentially trigger any emotional distress. So I want to encourage your audience to listen with a supportive companion, by your side. So someone like someone you trust, a friend or a sibling, a loved one, or a parent, it can make a difference, because they can offer you comfort and understanding if you hear things and it triggers something inside. So,
Or certainly reach out to you and me to help you through
exactly,
it.
because
Okay.
we're both here to, provide
Yeah,
that kind of
absolutely.
support. So anyway, and if it's something, because there's people that it might, bring up suicide, and to make sure that you, go to the suicide helpline if you're in distress or need urgent, help. So it's, really important that that crisis hotline is 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline here in the US. And then there's international ones you can Google about. So, but yeah, there's plenty of people out there that would help. And so what I want to share is that it's important for people to take care of themselves when they hear a story. So, and I want to start by sharing
And to be grounded and realize your story isn't their story.
Exactly.
Right. And to not take on this energy. Not try to heal you, because that's one thing I teach people is stay in your boundaries, stay in your energy field. Let Janine share her story and ask yourself, how can you learn or benefit from this story?
Very, very good. So anyway, I want to start by sharing a quote by from Anne Lamott, and she's a writer I greatly admire. And she once said, "You own everything that happened to you. Tell your stories. If people wanted you to write warmly about them, they should have behaved better. And those words really resonated with me deeply, especially when it comes to sharing about my own story.
And family.
Exactly. So today I want to open up and share a deeply personal, emotional story with you. And it's a story that encompasses horror, tragedy, and heartbreak, emotions that many of us have experienced in our own lives. So before I begin, it's just acknowledging the story has those heavy and difficult things to process. So it's really important to understand that and, be in that emotional state that you're well supported. So, um, and I want to assure you that despite the darkness in this tale, it has a happy ending. So that's really important to know. And here I am today.
I'm ready, Janine. I'm ready.
All right. So here I am today, thriving and grateful for the person I've become. And through my own experiences, I discovered the power to help countless others. And I'm about to share is dreadful. And, I'm trying to get to this comfort level here too, because I sometimes.
I understand. Take your time.
Yeah. And
what would Janine say to her client? She'd say, breathe.
breathe. Exactly.
You can do this. Yeah.
So anyway, I carried this devastating secret within me and tried to manage these overwhelming emotions all on my own. And it took me years of personal development and an unwavering desire to overcome the negativity in order to find a path through the grief, stop the suffering, and begin to live a fulfilling life. And I wanted to thrive. And it was during this journey that I found the courage to finally share my authentic story. So I'm going to briefly summarize my experiences. So when I was 5 years old, several teenage boys tied me up to rafters and gagged me. And then they proceeded to take turns raping me and heartlessly left me in a burning garage after a candle fell over. Fearing that I would tell someone, one of the boys came back and pressed a knife to my throat and held a BB gun to my chest. And he threatened to kill me if I told anyone. And I was terrified. And I didn't know the difference between a BB gun or a regular gun. I was in so much pain. And even though I was scared to die, part of me really wanted to die. And after promising that I would not tell anyone, he cut the ropes from around my wrist and freed me. As a victim of abuse, I carried an immense amount of shame, and I constantly lived in fear, worrying for my safety. And I believed I was damaged, and I was convinced that nobody could truly love me, and the weight of my past traumas haunted me, and the pain was felt as real as if it were happening in the present. Keeping this horrifying secret became increasingly difficult, and I was always afraid of being exposed, and I felt unworthy, and I spent my life trying to hide and yearning to disappear. But my story doesn't end there. At age 11, neighborhood kids brutally stripped me in a game they called Strip or Sing, a game, needless to say, I never won. At age 13, a teenage boy chased, pinned down, and raped me in the bathroom of my home when I caught him engaged in sexual acts with others. At age 14, a high school custodial manager sexually abused me, followed by a series of furious threats and mental torture by his wife and members of the community. At age 26, two men held me at gunpoint, while trying to carjack me and then sexually abused me. Now, these traumatic events deeply affected my confidence, ability to take action, and have fulfilling relationships. And I had a deep need for connection with others, yet I also harbored an extreme fear of intimacy. So certain situations in my present triggered memories of these traumas, making it incredibly challenging to let go of the pain. So I sought help from pastors and therapists, family, friends, and self-help books, desperately searching for healing. Mm-hmm. However, I encountered misunderstanding or advice that proved unhelpful. Mm-hmm. And despite the ongoing struggle to find support amidst my trauma, I tried my best to function in daily life. And the cumulative weight of all of my traumatic events reached its breaking point. And this is where I was sharing about my 50th birthday while I was celebrating with a friend at a restaurant. And it's a man who had unsuccessfully tried to hit on my friend and unleashed his frustration on me by groping me and hurling hurtful remarks like, you're not as good looking as your friend and you need to change. And in that moment, I found my voice and I shouted, get your hands off of me. And his relentless negativity and physical assault triggered memories of my past traumas, resurfacing all the wounds inflicted by others. And I thought, would this pain ever stop? Would I ever find relief? And these questions consumed me, and I felt an overwhelming anger that I couldn't control. The terrifying emotions seemed unstoppable, and I questioned if I could ever contain them again. And days passed, and pain persisted until a Facebook post by my friend's sister caught my eye, and it mentioned a book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and he's an internationally acclaimed author. And I remembered that their mother had highly recommended the book to me before. So I was intrigued and I read it, and I felt a renewed sense of inspiration. And I decided to fly to Chicago to attend this the Celebrate Your Life conference where Don Miguel was speaking. And this event became a turning point in my life, and it filled me with uplifting and transformative experiences. And through a series of synchronistic events, I crossed paths with Heather Ashamara, a shaman and healer who had worked extensively with Don Miguel. And Heather Ash had facilitated numerous workshops in the Toltec tradition and authored the best-selling book, Warrior Goddess Training. And she had several other books that she had written. And so I took a lot of her trainings, and it really kind of started me on this journey of healing. And I felt a deep connection to all of this, and it led me to this year-long women's program, apprenticeship program that she had that was called 13 Moons Women's Circle. And within the safety of this program, I finally felt secure enough to confront my traumatic event experiences and to truly process them as my own. And for the first time, I began to feel whole and powerful and divine. And I stopped searching for answers outside of myself and took responsibility for my own life and healing. And as a result of my own transformation, I realized that I needed to share what I had learned in order to help others struggling to heal from their own traumas. So I embarked on a journey to assist those who had experienced similar pain and suffering, offering them hope and understanding and a path toward healing. So my story is not unique, and it is certainly not defined solely by the traumas I endured. It is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the capacity for growth, empathy, and that power of empathy and compassion. So I'm here in front of you today as living proof that healing is possible and that we can emerge from the darkest of experiences and find light and purpose in our lives. So if you're listening,
yeah, that was pretty intense. I find it sad, and I kept thinking, where's your mom?
Yeah, and that was a difficult, my mom's here today. We have a relationship today, but was difficult during that time because she was very emotionally abusive to me.
Because that's, to me, energetically, and I don't want to read you, but energetically, I see it's the energy of your mother that was kind of, she left you, she kind of abandoned you, or was too distracted perhaps of what was going on, and that's how all of this sort of catapulted. I'm sure you've done a lot of healing work about and with your mom. Because our parents are the pinnacle points of where everything begins, right?
And
good for you. Wow, that's quite a journey, Janine. That's quite a journey.
Thank you.
Congratulations. How many years would you say you've committed to your own healing?
My own healing, I would say a lifetime, because I think we realistically do. When I was probably about 15 years, even more, because I was doing the talk therapy for several years before that. So I was doing that in my 30s. And
talk therapy, that's just kind of useless, isn't it?
I had no idea. Well, there's a purpose of, because sometimes you do need to talk about it,
Right.
That was a safe space to do that.
I know you're right. And that is helpful. And some people, I call it energetic vomit when you're doing that to your friend. It's like, I just got to get this off my chest. I got to get this off my chest, right? Whatever it is, little incidentals throughout the day. But what you're doing is you're just throwing that energy onto the other person. And someone like yourself, who's an empath, and me as an empath, we just take it on and we just keep loading up with everybody else's stuff. Yeah. So what would you say, besides the first step being grounded? Well, maybe you should tell us about your program.
Oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So you've been healing yourself, and now you have this amazing program. Tell us about it.
sure. Yeah. So and when people are often curious about it, and it's a support I offer for trauma survivors, and I want to emphasize that the importance of addressing the healing journey from trauma and suffering. And that's why I developed my one-on-one coaching and the Stop Suffering Now and Make Peace with Your Past group programs. And so these programs are designed to provide you with the support and tools you need to overcome trauma and create a life of relief and fulfillment. And so I'm going to focus really right now on my foundational Stop Suffering Now program. It's a 6-week program. And we will explore these 4 essential pillars that I call the 4 I's. And it's insight, impact, intuition, and implementation. So each of these pillars plays a crucial role in your healing journey. And I'm going to walk you through what you can expect in this program. During the course of 6 weeks, we embark on a journey towards recovery and relief. And then together, we'll explore each pillar and gently guide you through my proprietary process. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a glimpse of what each pillar entails. So insight, this pillar, we will delve into what I call the 7 essential elements to expand your awareness. And they provide you with valuable insights. And these elements include cultivating self-awareness, decreasing distractions, developing a healthy ego, overcoming denial, increasing self-empowerment, strengthening intuition, and being present. And these elements are vital to moving past pain and towards a life of joy and freedom. And then the second pillar, it's impact. And we focus on understanding how trauma has impacted your life and your relationships. And we'll explore the importance of developing a strong personal foundation that's built on self-love, trust, resilience, acceptance, and worthiness. And by deepening your connection with yourself and others, you'll be able to create loving and caring relationships that contribute to your healing journey. And then pillar 3 is intuition, and strengthening your intuition is the focus of this pillar. So we'll learn how to tap into your intuition and trust your gut feelings, and consciously assessing this remarkably powerful part of your mind, and you'll make better decisions, control your enthusiasm, and gain a deeper sense of trust in yourself. And then we'll explore the 7 steps to strengthen your intuition, which include being open, noticing your feelings and emotions, pretending it is real, trusting the process, reporting what it was revealed, interpreting what you gather, and then integrating it all together. And then the last pillar is implementation, and it's actually interwoven throughout the entire program. So from day 1, you'll receive practical tips, strategies, and tools that you can immediately apply and bring you lasting change in your life. So this integration is crucial in ensuring that you can effectively use what you learn to transform your life and find relief from suffering. So throughout the program, you'll have access to supportive group sessions where you can connect with others on a similar healing journey and receive additional guidance. So, and what I want to make sure the program is right for people. So I like to invite them to a confidential conversation with me. So.
Okay, so we'll put the link in the description.
Okay.
So people can reach out to you and have a conversation before.
Thank you.
Yeah. So is this an online program that basically or is it one-on-one with the person?
Well, the group program, Stop Suffering Now, it's a group program, and I teach it live. So I typically teach on the Mondays, and then I have a Q&A session on Thursdays. So this is something I just do it every 6 weeks. And
Okay.
then they can go on to other parts of the journey, like to make peace with their past and move on through my journey with helping people. And yeah, it's it's a comprehensive program, And really the key is you got to stop the suffering before you can make peace with your past.
Mhm.
So often, and so if you're ready to do the work, and that's, it's key, it's instrumental, because it is a process, and it's different for everybody. But when I found that my healing journey wasn't about repeating that horrible, horrific story. It was really absorbing what I was learning, and all of a sudden I started feeling better inside. And
And
I started,
creating a new story,
correct.
creating a new story
Yeah,
that's just the best ever.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
I
And
know
so
when we're stuck in it, it's hard to fathom sometimes that you're the writer of your story. So,
yeah,
so the past chapters were sucked, but let's move forward and create some
yeah.
fantastic journey and adventure.
That's and this is why I wrote my book, Creating Heaven Wherever I Am. And I am is our connection to whoever it is we believe in. It is us. It's our, it's that creating that connection. We can create heaven wherever we are in life. And that title was a dream I had ever since I was a little girl. So, now I kind of want to make it like a book series, because I have 2 books of that. Then I worked with my business coach on her book, What Every Mom Needs to Know Now. And
Oh, okay. I got that confused in the beginning. I apologize.
yeah,
Yeah. So you were part of that series, is that the point?
correct. It was,
Okay, got it.
the one, and I wrote about the 5 steps to overcoming trauma. So there's, different things that lead you to, what I was sharing here today. So
Yeah. I heard recently, tell me what you think about this, is somebody was talking about the difference between grief and mourning.
mm.
What do you have a definition, or have you
um, well,
delineated it?
grief, I think, is that, I'm trying to think here, what would be a good way to define that? This is a great question. And for me, the grief is, experiencing and feeling that loss. And the mourning is, those deep inside feelings, that come as a result of that grief. So,
Yeah, I've been thinking about it myself, and I'm thinking mourning might be more of an external symbology. Like, let's say, I remember my grandmother, she had pictures of my deceased uncle and aunt, and when they first died, but then she kept them there forever. So is that a form of mourning? Maybe it's a form of remembering,
right.
but there's certain phases, like in certain cultures, they'll wear black. Like for a woman that's lost her husband, she'll just wear black forever and ever, amen. Some
Right.
people give themselves a month. Some people say, oh, my grieving process or mourning is 6 months or a year, or whatever people delegate that to be. And I think some of our cultural expectations might be
Yes.
pressing down on that, and where it kind of keeps us stuck.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's something that would be healthy. I don't
Yeah.
know, but each
No,
person is uniquely different, I guess. So
correct. I was about ready to share that with you. I was like, that's what I feel when I hear mourning, because it's something that is unique to different people.
but it's almost too like an extended version. Like,
Yeah.
let's drag this out because I need to suffer. In other words, and maybe that's the extreme version of it, but it's almost like, let's make this, because and almost maybe this might sound harsh, but it's almost like perpetuating the feeling of suffering so that others see you as the victim. So in a way, it could perpetuate that when we
Yeah,
stay in it too long.
right.
I think it's
I,
probably a necessary part of the process, but
I would think, and then, if you're somebody who had experienced traumatic events, that's where that extreme comes into play, until you go through a healing journey and you can start releasing it, and you can get to honoring the person that you've lost,
right.
honoring those traumatic events that brought you to where you are today. Because today I wouldn't be who I am today had I not experienced those experiences.
Yeah.
And as difficult as it was, I lived in the mourning stage for a long time. I lived in that victim stage for a very long time.
And you mourned the loss of yourself, as understandably, but
Right.
when you finally had the wherewithal within, the strength, and you had the courage developed, built from the trainings that you had attended, and
Yeah.
maybe the other support of other participants, right? That helps.
Right.
Realize you're not alone and you can do this. Yeah. I was just thinking of a gentleman that was one of my clients. Actually, his wife who passed was my client. And then she passed suddenly. And then he was really, really struggling with the loss, or with her loss. And they both played guitars. And he didn't touch her instruments at all. But then after we did the healing, all of a sudden he posted the guitar online, and it was, I think, a left-handed guitar, which was unusual, right?
Yeah.
And so it
Left-handed.
wasn't for just anybody. So he posted it, and this woman came and bought the guitar, and he told her the story, how it was his wife's. And there was a pardon me, there was a huge spiritual connection between the new owner of the guitar and I forget all of her story, but it was so magical that he was just so happy that
Yeah.
he let it go and start to could really, he let go of that process of holding on, and it brought him so much healing as a result. And so I just share that with for people, that in letting go is
Yeah.
where the real magic happens, when we can allow ourselves to step into the healing.
Yeah. There's, I think about like letting go. That is such a beautiful story about letting go. Oftentimes it's connotated with somebody telling you that's old, that happened so long ago, just let it go. That's completely different. And that's somebody who doesn't understand that story of him honoring his wife in that way, or in passing that guitar to that woman there, and sharing that story is honoring the
Yeah,
individual that
he
was.
really was, and it was like she was there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I would give him messages of what she would say from time to time, but it was only after he gave himself the healing time and that process, and honoring himself first and her, and the journey they were now on in a whole new level. He was only then that he was able to start letting go of her clothing and her other personal items, but it was the music, the guitar, the thing they shared so much with, really opened things up immensely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So Janine, was there anything else that were called to share with us today about your upcoming trainings? You're looking for people to book a call with you.
Yeah,
And
I have a master class that's coming up, but and it's also something I run repeatedly, so I could share that link. But it's it's
okay.
it's the first stepping stone to introduce you to Stop Suffering Now. So it
Okay.
talks, there's strategies in there to help with overcoming trauma. It's a free master class that's available for folks.
Okay.
So,
Great. That's awesome. Well, I am so grateful that we finally got together here today,
yeah, it
and
was
that you
fun.
could share your beautiful story, because I'm sure, well, I think it's beautiful. I think that is the way you've overcome that tremendous burden that you carried and are supporting and serving other people now is truly beautiful, truly wonderful.
I can say you can be diagnosed with complex PTSD like I was, and be in a different position when you step on your healing journey. Uh,
Absolutely.
This light just doesn't want to play.
No, I wanted to ask you, do you still have siblings, or do you have siblings?
Yes, I have two younger sisters. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and
Are you in communication with them?
I am, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Okay, good.
and then they're out in Wisconsin. I'm in Florida, so it's a
Yeah.
little bit of distance in that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I don't know why they just popped in here. They wanted to be
yeah,
acknowledged. Yeah.
yeah, because the traumatic experiences that we experience at home, like what my sisters also experienced. So it's just we're on differing paths of our healing journey. So
Yeah.
uh,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Well, hey, thanks again, Janine. I am
Sure.
so delighted that we could connect and that you could share your incredible story. And the links for Janine's masterclass and her training, or where you can book a call with her, are in the description. And if you like this information, please leave us your comments. We'd love to hear about maybe how this helped you reframe something, or maybe you have a question for us. We will be happy to answer that, or anything that you were enlightened with Janine's beautiful story. So thanks again. Thank you so much,
No,
Janine,
thank
for
you. Thank you.
joining me here today. And I honor you on your amazing journey moving forward. So until tomorrow, everybody, I'll see you, and just shine